Hey everyone, continuing on with Pliny's letter. This is book 6 of his collected letters, letter 16 to Tacitus, detailing the events that happened on August 24th of the year Vesuvius erupted. So we were just talking about the fact that Pliny the Elder himself, he's a famous guy justifying the Ilia, had taken a bath, or a sun bath and a cold water bath, had eaten and was lying and studying. So lying, he had eaten and was studying. He demands his shoes. He climbs up to a place from which he can see from which most the kind of miraculous cloud, that wonder, was able to be seen. So nubes, here we go. So what is this? Well, if you look it up in the dictionary, nubes, we've got one of these perisyllabic third declension nouns. So we don't know if this is singular or plural. We'll see soon what number it is, but it's going to likely be the subject given its placement in the sentence, so we can maybe mark it that way. Maybe it's a direct object, but we'll find out soon. So the cloud, or clouds, incertum, so this is just saying it was uncertain, procul, from far off, to those looking. So here we have another deponent verb, and tueor is the dictionary entry, and then intuere. So note that above, when we had usus, this deponent perfect passive participle, it actually was a perfect active participle in its meaning, passive in form, active in meaning, because it was deponent. So here we have another deponent verb, but here we have it taking on an active form. This is one thing that it's kind of, deponent verbs can have it both ways. In the perfect form, like usus, we can have them have an active meaning, but here they have an active form, which in theory they shouldn't even be able to do, but that they take it and still have an active meaning. So uncertain to those from far off looking. So it was unclear from far off to those looking, from which mountain. So this isn't quo, as we had here, a relative. So this quo is qui, quae, quod. This one is coming from quis, quid. There's many similarities between these, so it's not worth getting hung up on the differences, but this doesn't come with a question. These come from question marks. So this is kind of a contained question, not from which mountain, it's from which mountain. So it's not, there's a question at play here. This isn't referring back to any antecedent. It doesn't modify incertum. It modifies monte. It moves that way to modify which mountain. From which mountain? That was uncertain to those looking on from far off. Vesuvius, fuisse postea cognitum est. So this is an adverb afterward. So we can kind of isolate that. It was cognitum, kind of recognized, realized, understood later, afterwards, after the kind of Hauptzoll had come to a close and they could see this mountain had blown its top off, was Vesuvius. So why do we have a perfect infinitive here? Because that's what fuisse is. It's not esse. It's not fore, the future infinitive. It's the perfect infinitive. Well, this is because they're learning later that it had been, that it was Vesuvius. That was the mountain from which the cloud or clouds were coming. So then here we get aureabatur. And note that it's not aureabantur. We are talking about a singular cloud. So this is, again, yet another deponent verb, aureor. Ori, and then ortum est, or ortus est, we could also do. So passive form as we have here, but active meaning, and then this batur is telling us that this is going to be imperfect. So a cloud was rising, was coming up. Quius. So this is a genitive singular, and it could be any gender, but it has to be modifying something back, a noun, and because we know it's singular, that's actually going to be all the way back to nubes. So the cloud, whose, and then here we have to kind of look for a subject, because we have similitudinem et formam, so it's likeness and shape. But this isn't the subject, these are both accusatives, so they're going to be our objects. But together, kind of form an object unit. Not, known. Alia, well, that could be a number of things. That could be neuter plural, could be feminine singular. Magis, this is going to be an adverb that's going to trigger this quam. It's going to be comparative. Rather is how we translate magis. And then alia is clearly now here working with arbor. Arbor, arboris, feminine, third declension noun. So that's nominative clearly. If you look at the dictionary, alia works with that. So not other, a tree, no other tree rather than a pinus. Sorry, that's how it's pronounced. We might say pine. And that's exactly what it was. Expresseret. So this is going to be our subject, and this is going to be our verb. So what verb, what is the form of this? And this closes off ultimately our relative clause that started with quies. But now let's go and analyze the form of this verb. So when you go to the back of the book and you look this up, you'll see ex primo, exprimere, and then the third principal part is this expressi. So primo, this is to press down. That's where we get the word from. This is to push onto something. So when we use this verb express to either mean something that's fast or also I want to express myself. This is kind of coming from maybe a kind of proto print or what we might call a type culture, because print, I mean, the ability to press things and make copies has been around for a long time. It's really the printing press that has movable type that becomes so impressive and something that can press reliably on paper. But we're thinking here of maybe a wax seal, something that is able to, you've got a signet ring, right? You might, terrible drawing time. I think many of you will know how this works. But if you want to seal a letter in antiquity to authenticate that it was coming from you, you would have a signet ring that would have a certain design on it, maybe a plus or a star, something that would be uniquely yours and your recipient would know. Then you'd be able to press that into hot wax that would be sealing the paper, and it would leave this image. Let's see if I can do a artful negative here. No, it's too... Yeah, there we go. Something like that. It would show your symbol on the ring, and then this, you would have a wax that would look something like that, and then you'd say, oh, well, that's expressing, that's, through the action of pressing the ring into the wax, you have expressed its art, its form. So here we're getting the same thing applied metaphorically. So no other tree rather than, or so none other than the, no other tree rather than the pine expresseret. So this is, well, what? Third principal part we saw, but then we're ending it with eret. So this could be one of two things. This could be future perfect, active, or it could be subjunctive, perfect, active. So will have expressed kind of works, but might express works much better. So this is going to be our subject or subjunctive third person perfect singular. So let's go back to the very beginning. So a cloud, it was uncertain from far off to those looking from what mountain it was coming, that is. It was recognized afterwards that the mountain was or had been Vesuvius. So this cloud was rising. A cloud whose whose form, whose shape and form. So this quies is modifying these accusatives. No other tree than the pine expressor it. So when we think of a pine tree, we think of these kind of, lodge pines, other things we got in North America that look sort of like that. That doesn't look much like a volcano eruption, obviously. But for those of you who have been to Italy, to Rome, you know that pine trees kind of go up like this and then have very wide reaching. We do have some of these kind of on campus over by some of the commuter lots up by the well, actually, even behind the Union, these really wide top on the pine tree over a small thing. So this is what we would call a mushroom cloud, right? At the initial force of the explosion sends all this up in a column. This superheated air rises straight up, and as it cools, it begins to spread out, and as it hits a different layer of the atmosphere. So we are just, even though it's a pine tree, and to us that means a kind of Christmas tree-like shape, for the Romans this is their mushroom cloud. So he's almost coining the term here, but he's not calling it a mushroom cloud, he's calling it a pine tree. Good, so I've gone a little bit long on that. That's 11 minutes into the video now. Let's wrap up and take this next sentence in a final recording. See you then.